She doesn't fall in love with the man who texts her every morning. She doesn't fall in love with the guy who buys the flowers, plans the date, says the right thing. She falls in love with the man who makes her feel something she can't explain, a presence that doesn't need to beg for attention, a calm that challenges her chaos, a certainty that tells her, without a single word, "You'll never shake me." Men, if you're constantly doing everything right, yet you're still being ghosted, replaced, or forgotten, it's because no one taught you the rules. Let me ask you something. Have you ever poured your soul into a woman, showed up for her, opened your heart, only to watch her slowly disconnect? You did everything you were told. You were nice. You were present. You were available. And still, you watched her drift like you were invisible. You thought effort would win her. You thought being a good man was enough. But modern dating is a battlefield no one prepared you for. You're facing a world where attention is currency, love is transactional, and men are told to soften, while being punished for showing emotion. You're taught to pursue, to chase, to be kind, while never being taught what women actually respond to. And now you're tired. Tired of feeling like nothing works. Tired of giving and never being chosen. Tired of being replaced by a man who seems to care less, but somehow, she's obsessed with him. If that hits your soul, then this video isn't just content. It's your map out of the chaos. Comment this below if you're watching. I choose peace over chasing. This is the truth she won't say out loud. This is the truth no one dares speak, because it challenges everything we were told as men. But if you're ready to stop playing their game and start becoming the man love naturally gravitates toward, then stay until the end. And if you're serious about mastering this, not just understanding it, but living it, we've distilled everything into something that's changing lives, the Stoic Relationship Blueprint ebook for men. It's not theory. It's timeless Stoic philosophy and insight for men who want to stop guessing and start winning. You'll find the link below. Read it. Study it. Apply it. It's the blueprint no one gave us growing up. Today, I'm going to show you how women actually fall in love, not the surface-level advice you've heard online, but real insight from Stoic psychology based on timeless principles, unshakable presence, and emotional intelligence that no one teaches men anymore. She doesn't fall in love with a man because he promises her the world. She falls for the man who doesn't flinch when the world throws chaos at him. She craves something beyond words, beyond compliments, beyond the staged gestures so many men waste energy on. What she longs for, deeply, unconsciously, is a sense of internal safety in a man, a certainty she can't find in herself. And this isn't about shielding her from the world like a protector from an old fairy tale. No, it's about the invisible fortress you build around your own spirit, a way of existing that says, "I won't be broken by your moods, your tests, or the things life throws at us." She's drawn to a man who doesn't need her validation to feel like he matters, who doesn't chase, explain, overtalk, or beg for love. A man who can be fully present in his own mind whether she's in the room or not. That is the kind of man who anchors her. Most men try to offer security by trying harder, saying more, promising everything. But that's not the kind of safety she craves. She wants the kind of energy that doesn't need to speak loudly to be felt, the type of calm that holds weight in a room without effort. If your emotions get hijacked every time she withdraws, if your confidence crumbles the moment she questions you, you're telling her loud and clear that your center isn't real. And she cannot trust that. Because she's not just watching how you treat her when she's happy, she's watching what happens when she's uncertain, upset, or even cold. Can you remain composed when she doesn't give you the reaction you hoped for? Can you stay grounded when the connection feels distant? If you're searching for constant reassurance or reacting to every dip in attention, you're not building security. You're broadcasting insecurity. And she feels it. She falls in love with the man who needs nothing from her, but chooses her freely. That's the paradox. The less you need her approval, the more magnetic you become, because you're not trying to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. When you can be alone and undisturbed, when your peace isn't dependent on her mood, her texts, or her affection, that's when you become unforgettable. This is the kind of security that changes everything. And it has nothing to do with pretending not to care or playing mind games. It's about building such a strong relationship with your own inner state that nothing she does can move you off balance. When she sees that she doesn't have the power to destroy your inner peace, that's when she truly starts to trust you. That's when she begins to fall. Not for what you say or do, but for who you are in your core. For most men, this is unfamiliar. Because we were taught that being good, being kind, being available is what makes us worthy of love. But what makes you truly magnetic isn't the noise you make, it's the stability you carry. It's the fact that you don't lose yourself trying to keep her. She craves the man who holds the world together quietly, who leads himself first before ever trying to lead anyone else. And if you can become that man, not just for her, but for you, you will never chase love again. Love will recognize you when it sees you, because you've become the very thing it's been searching for. And you won't get there by accident. You get there by learning to sit with your own discomfort, to master the urges that most men let control them, the urge to fix, to explain, to be seen, to make. Everything's okay. You have to kill the part of you that thinks your value comes from how much you do for her, how fast you reply, how deeply you express what you feel. She doesn't need you to be expressive. She needs to feel you are solid. And that kind of solidity only comes from discipline, from doing hard things, especially when no one's watching. From developing a life that you believe in, one that doesn't revolve around being chosen, but about choosing what's worthy of your energy. So many men never build this. They trade their peace for approval, their strength for access, their attention for attention. And they wonder why they feel empty, why she slips away. But when you begin every day sharpening your mind, moving your body, setting goals and crushing them, not for a woman but for the man in the mirror, that's when you start building that internal gravity. When you go days without needing validation, when you pursue peace over praise, when you value your focus over her flattery, you become dangerous in the best way. She doesn't fall for men who talk. She falls for men who don't need to. So build that inner world until it speaks louder than any words ever could. Become the man whose presence is a sanctuary, not just for her, but for yourself. Number 2. Masculine stillness creates sexual tension. There's something about a man who doesn't rush to fill space, who doesn't fidget for attention, who doesn't jump into action the moment a woman hesitates. That man carries a gravity she can't explain, and it pulls her in deeper than any compliment or gift ever could. Because what she's really drawn to isn't what he does, but what he doesn't do. The power he shows by holding himself steady when most men collapse into overcompensating behaviors. When he simply lets the moment breathe without begging for reassurance. When he stands calm in uncertainty, refusing to prove his worth through words. She feels it in her gut. She knows she's standing in front of a man who is not seeking permission to exist. And that awareness makes her question her own footing, because he's not chasing her, not trying to decode her every move, not reacting to her shifts. And in that quiet confidence, he becomes unpredictable. Not in a chaotic way, but in a way that signals, I am already complete, and you don't get to decide my value. That feeling, that slow-building uncertainty in her, creates a kind of pressure inside her that most men never make her feel because they're too busy proving, chasing, explaining. Whereas this man, the one who meets her pauses with calm, who lets her speak without rushing to interrupt or interpret, who watches with clear eyes instead of desperate hope, he becomes fascinating because she can't find a crack in him to enter and control. And now, instead of being in charge, she starts to lean in, to invest, to wonder. Because his stillness has created a space where her mind begins to turn, where her emotions begin to wander, where her attraction begins to spike without her understanding why. And this is where desire is born. Not from what he says, but from what he doesn't need to say. Not from pursuit, but from the vacuum he creates simply by not trying to force closeness. And this tension is sacred because it's real, because she knows it's not manipulation. It's discipline. It's mastery of impulse. It's the kind of energy that whispers, I have nothing to prove. And if you stay, good. If you leave, I'll still be whole. And that unshakable energy, that quiet edge, that deep, immovable presence, tells her everything about him without him needing to open his mouth. It tells her she is not the center of his life, but she's being invited into a world that doesn't revolve around her whims. Suddenly, her interest is no longer casual. It becomes focused, emotional, even urgent, because he's not offering himself up like a prize to be judged. He's already chosen himself. And the tension she feels is not fear or confusion, it's desire meeting boundaries. It's attraction meeting depth. And it stays with her longer than any pickup line or date night, because it touches something deeper, a longing to be around someone she can't control, can't fully understand, can't predict, but desperately wants to figure out. This is how she begins to fall. Not through the safety of comfort, but through the thrill of presence. Through the magnetism of stillness. Through the unforced connection that he doesn't chase, but allows to unfold slowly, confidently, and always on his terms. Number 3. Emotional control equals emotional gravity. There is a weight to a man who can feel everything but still choose his actions with intention, a rare force that doesn't come from pretending not to care or shutting down emotions, but from facing them, feeling them fully, and still moving with clarity and direction. And this kind of control doesn't look like detachment. It looks like calm fire, a man who can walk through chaos, loss, rejection, temptation, and not be ruled by reaction. He doesn't lash out. He doesn't beg. He doesn't crumble under confusion. He decides, and she sees it. She feels it in the way he holds eye contact when things get hard. In the way his tone doesn't shake when pressure rises. In the way he hears her words, but isn't swayed by every emotional wave she throws at him. And in those moments, something primal awakens inside her. Because now she knows this man cannot be easily broken, cannot be manipulated, cannot be pulled out of himself just because her emotions shift. This is the kind of presence that makes her fall, slowly at first and then suddenly because she feels safe. Not because he makes everything easy, but because he doesn't disappear when things get hard. And when he speaks, she listens. Not because he demands it, but because his words carry the weight of someone who isn't trying to prove anything, only to express what's real. This kind of emotional control isn't something most men are taught. In fact, they're taught the opposite, that feeling everything loudly is the only way to be honest. But the truth is, honesty without restraint is just chaos. And she doesn't want chaos. She wants to know you feel deeply, but she wants to see that your depth doesn't drown you. She wants to feel your fire, but know that it doesn't burn the room down. When you can sit with anger and not explode, with sadness and not collapse, with passion and not become impulsive, you give her a new standard of safety. Not the safety of agreeing with her, or the safety of softness, but the safety of steadiness. And this is what creates gravity. Emotional gravity isn't loud. It's not about controlling others. It's the kind of influence that makes her lower her voice when you speak, that makes her reach for your energy when she's unsure, that makes her trust you with her chaos. Not because you silence it, but because your clarity gives her space to sort it without being judged or rushed. When she feels that kind of gravity, she starts to invest, not out of guilt, not out of need, but out of a deep curiosity for how you move through the world. Because you've become more than a man trying to impress. You've become a force that holds the room differently. Not by volume, but by emotional command. The truth is, most women never meet this kind of man. They meet men who explode, who chase, who vanish, who cling. But the one who stays rooted, who watches, listens, thinks, and only then speaks, that man becomes unforgettable. Not because he's flashy, but because he's rare. And that kind of rarity turns attraction into respect, and respect into obsession. Because she knows that no matter what happens, this man won't lose himself. And when you can be that man, when you can walk through fire without flinching and still offer warmth instead of ashes, you become the kind of man she can't stop thinking about. The kind of man she fears losing, not because he needs her, but because he is the standard she now craves. And once she tastes that gravity, nothing lighter ever feels the same. To carry that gravity, you must first earn it from yourself. You must become the man who tells himself the truth when no one's looking, who keeps his promises when there's no audience, who feels the fear, the doubt, the anger, but doesn't let them dictate his next move. You become emotionally unshakable, not by denying what you feel, but by learning to feel without being enslaved to those feelings. By mastering the discipline of choosing how to respond instead of defaulting to old patterns. And this means putting yourself in discomfort on purpose, training your body when it wants to rest, controlling your breath when your chest is tight, standing still when everything in you wants to flee or explode. Because every time you do that, you send yourself a message that says, I don't belong to my emotions. They belong to me. Slowly, over time, you stop fearing her tests. You stop avoiding tough conversations. You stop chasing affection to feel secure, because you've built that security inside of you. And she feels it in the way you move, the way you look at her, the way you never compete for attention or try to convince her to stay. That energy doesn't just make you attractive, it makes you unforgettable. Because most men are waves crashing against her boundaries. But you are the tide, steady, deliberate, always in control. And that kind of presence changes what she believes is possible in a man. Number 4. Unshakable confidence. Confidence isn't loud. It doesn't walk into a room and announce itself with ego or theatrics. Real confidence is quiet and unmistakable. It's in the way a man moves through the world without second-guessing himself. In the way he makes decisions without asking for permission. In the way he speaks with clarity, not to dominate, but because he knows his words are rooted in experience. What women feel in the presence of that kind of man is different. It's not butterflies. It's not fantasy. It's gravity. It's the instinct that tells her, this man doesn't need me to choose him to feel worthy. He already knows he's worth choosing. She feels that every time he stands his ground without explanation, every time he looks her in the eye without wavering, every time he says no without apology, and yes without hesitation. That energy, self-certainty, cuts through her defenses because it's rare. Most men hesitate, overthink, and chase safety in the form of her reactions. But the man who is unshakable stands in his truth. Whether she agrees or not, he holds his boundaries without aggression and without fear. And in doing so, he becomes the one she can't forget. Because there's nothing more compelling than a man who doesn't collapse under pressure, who doesn't fold when challenged, who doesn't adjust his core to be liked. And this is where confidence separates itself from arrogance, because arrogance needs validation. It demands recognition. But true confidence just exists. It needs nothing. It asks for nothing. It's forged in solitude, in pain, in failure, in walking away from what no longer aligns and standing alone with your values when it's easier to compromise. Every woman who comes close to that kind of man feels the edge of something real, something undeniable, because now she's in front of someone who cannot be swayed by desire, who cannot be baited into proving himself. And what that tells her is this: if she's chosen, it means something. It means he values her. But it also means he doesn't need her. And that balance, that paradox of openness without attachment, is what keeps her drawn to him again and again. Because now she's not just dealing with a man, she's dealing with a standard. And once she experiences that, once she feels the peace and power of someone who walks his own path without asking for a roadmap, she either rises to meet him or she drifts away. Not because he pushed her, but because he simply kept walking. That is the power of unshakable confidence. It doesn't argue. It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain itself. It builds a life worth living and lets others decide if they're strong enough to walk beside it. You don't get to that level by accident. It's earned through choices, through the moments when it would have been easier to doubt yourself, to bend for approval, to say yes when everything in you knew the answer was no. Through the times you stood alone because your standards were too high for most to meet, and you stayed the course anyway. That's how real confidence is built. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. When no one is clapping. When no one sees the sacrifice. When your progress is invisible, but you keep going because you know what you're building inside is bigger than validation. And the more you do that, the more natural it becomes to look someone in the eyes and speak with calm certainty, to turn down what doesn't align, to let go of who doesn't match your vision, not out of spite, but out of deep respect for your own time and energy. When a woman sees that you can walk away, not to punish her, but because peace is your priority, when she sees that you don't seek approval, you offer opportunity, she knows this isn't a man to toy with. This is a man to value, to respect, to align with. And in a world where most men are looking to be accepted, you become unforgettable by being the one who's already accepted himself. If you're still watching, it means something inside you knows the truth. You were never meant to chase love. You were meant to become a man so grounded, so centered, so complete that love has no choice but to find you. But if you keep living by lies, if you keep reacting, overthinking, bending for approval, you'll wake up one day beside someone who doesn't respect you, or worse, alone with nothing but regret for the years you wasted trying to be what the world told you a man should be. Today, you've been shown a different way. And now the choice is yours. Keep scrolling, or grab the Stoic relationship blueprint for men. The guide every man should have been handed at 16, but no one dared to write until now. It's raw. It's real. It's powerful because it holds the power to end decades of confusion in minutes. And it's available now, but not forever, because some truths are too powerful to stay open to the world for long. The link's in the comments. And if you're ready to stop guessing and start living as the man she falls for without even knowing why, then comment the Stoic blueprint below. Like the video and subscribe to help us reach more men who've been lied to for far too long.